Hi, everyone, and thanks for all the support and positive feedback you've given me for match one. And now we're heading into match two. Very exciting. And this first game, to be honest, is not such a dramatic game. I think you'll find the next games in the match are much more exciting. But obviously, there's some learning points from this game. And one of the key ones is thinking about the strategy, what's the theme of the position that you need to consistently follow. Of course, things change, but, trying to identify, basically the type of game you need to play and following that fairly consistently can help to boost your backgammon skills, right? And also playing against an anchor, especially like a 3-point anchor, and keeping some flexibility. And then finally, some ideas about balancing saving a gammon versus building a homeboard position. That kind of comes up as well. So anyways, hope you can get some learning points from this particular game. And stay tuned, because this match really is quite an amazing match in terms of the drama. So anyways, enjoy and leave some comments or suggestions. Yeah, thanks. Excellent. Let's start. So black gets the opening roll and splits with the back checkers. Okay. And white hits with a 6. And now that black is on the bar, it's the right time for white to split his back checkers instead of bringing another one down from the midpoint. Okay, it's the best way to for white to keep himself being primed, right? Black comes in and naturally hits loose. And white is fortunate to be able to do the double hit here. Black comes in and hits. And white enters with a double, a nice double. Hitting with the hitting on the 4-point, making the 4-point is strong here. And then securing the 20-point is also important. It's unlikely that at this point white is going to be able to finish this game quickly. So keeping the 20-point as a strategic asset is important. Here's the first mistake by black, and it is a bit strange, right? So black is behind in the race. He's got 3 checkers back. White has 3 checkers back as well, but yeah, notice, for example, white has a blot on the 8-point, right? So black really should hit loose here. It's thematic, right? When you're behind in the race, you're not afraid of being hit and getting more checkers sent back. So, and it's a bit strange to just stack the 6-point and play more safely here. This isn't the position where you really need to play safe, right? Especially since black has made an anchor. So a bit puzzling. Why play safe here? Instead, just keep on fighting. And if more checkers get sent back, then at this point, it's okay. There's still lots of play in the position. Well, white makes the 8-point. And black ends up hitting loose anyway, so yeah, again, be careful about this, right? This kind of inconsistency in strategy, right? On the one hand, you do that. On the other hand, you take a different tack, and so basically, do you have a clear kind of approach to this position in front of you, and you're not being totally dictated by the dice, so to speak, right? I think that's one way to improve your game, is to have kind of a vision for what the position requires. Of course, things change, and sometimes you do have to change tacks, but depending on your underlying evaluation of the position. For example, I'm really behind in the race. I've got a number of checkers back already, so I might as well take some risks and continue hitting loose, that kind of thing. Or depending on other factors, you decide on your strategy and try to be consistent with it. Here, Black doesn't seem to have a clear strategy, and then he's just kind of playing according to what looks good on the dice, right? So that's probably a difference between a decent player and stronger players. So look out for that. White hits and then jumps out with the 5, and this, basically, it's doubtful that Black is going to settle for a back game here. Okay, it's still too early, and the timing isn't right. White still has too many checkers kind of to bring around the board, and so Black is going to be looking to play into the outfield, and for that reason, White wants to establish some presence in the outfield, right? And that's possibly where the conflict is going to take place in the next few rolls. So that's a strong reason for White to jump out. And of course, the you don't really want to hit loose here. It makes no sense, even though you have a stacked 6-point, right? There's no, the double hit here, a blitz is unlikely to work, and especially Black already has an anchor, so there's not as much rationale for the blitz here. But controlling the outfield is much more thematic here, or at least trying to fight for it. And this is another interesting move. XG pegs it as a mistake, not a big one, and suggests that Black play out. And I've kind of struggled with the rationale for this because 24-18 doesn't look too bad to me. And perhaps you can put your own opinion in the comments about this. I suppose playing 24-18, does seem like a little more of maybe a racing move, like if you keep a checker on the 24, then that does prevent White from perhaps safely dumping some checkers back. That might be one idea. But yeah, and I'm not sure, possibilities of double hits, right? Hitting the checker on the 18-point and then on the 20-point. But this move out to the 14, I guess, also fights a little more for the outfield, even though it does leave shots. There's no move that really, doesn't leave shots. So notice this alternative is interesting, right? This perhaps is also kind of a little more thematic for the position. Black has 4 checkers back. You might as well kind of play a little more loosely. You put that checker to good use, maybe on the 7. But on the whole, I think Black should bring some back checkers out here. And XG suggests that playing to the 14 is the best way to do it. Maybe it's kind of playing both ways, right? You are putting up a fight in the outfield, but you are leaving a checker on the 24-point. You're not racing at this point, right? So maybe that's kind of thoughts. But anyway, share your own ideas in the comments if you'd like. Okay, White hits. And Black fans. And White whips out the cube. Okay, so this is a situation where, you can see White is really far ahead in the race. Black has a checker on the bar. White has the threat to make the 5 point. So there's a number of factors that really say double this now. Even though it's true that White has 2 checkers back in Black's homeboard, there's still a bit of work to do. But all these factors together say this is a strong double. But Black does have a take, right? The key thing is he has an anchor. White doesn't have that many rolls that point on the 5 point. Large rolls are not as useful for him. And as I said, White has a bit of work to get his checkers round. There are no impurities in Black's position. He hasn't buried any checkers or anything like that. So with that anchor that he has, this is sort of a long-term kind of insurance policy, right? That he's always going to have some play. And so it is a take, even though it is a strong double. Okay, White can't point on the 5 point, but he can hit loose, and he goes all in, so to speak, with a very blotful move, and hopes for the best. That Black doesn't roll something like double 2s or from the bar, or double 5s. Obviously, would be nasty. But White has his own anchor too, so playing this really loose play is not so risky. Black's homeboard is undeveloped, so it's definitely worth it. And Black dances again on a 2-point board, right? Gnashing of teeth all around. So you can see, at this point, the value of having doubled immediately, right? And not holding on to the cube. Now White clearly has a very strong position, and even some very good gammon chances, right? We're up to about 40% gammons here. Okay, White consolidates his position and starts building that prime. And Black brings in 1 checker. And then White makes an error here, and this is quite instructive. White is thinking perhaps of kind of increasing the gammon chances, but in fact, Black has this anchor, right? And so yes, there are gammon chances, but it's not so, how shall I say, forward thinking to make that 2 point. Basically, White needs to bring his checkers around, and he needs some flexibility as he's bringing these checkers around, because not every roll is going to make it easy to do that. And so maintaining these 2 checkers on the 6 point gives him more flexibility against Black's anchor here. Okay, so it makes much more sense for White to maintain those checkers and just of course he's going to bring out 2 checkers from the 20 point, that's for sure, but with the other 2 4s, just to make the 9 point and bring the 8 point over. Okay, some of the gammon chances that White has are related to Black coming in on the 2 point or 1 point, and then White being able to point on him again and make a point, as opposed to just making a point with him on the bar. But the key thing here is against an anchor like this, a 3-point anchor, White really wants to keep some flexibility in his position, and being able to, for example, play a 5 or a 4 behind the anchor from the 6 point could be valuable in the future. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's one of the reasons why you don't want to bury checkers necessarily, even if you make a strong homeboard. It depends on the position, but against this kind of anchor, you want to keep some flexibility. And unfortunately, this is a blunder by white. Okay, black comes in, and there are a number of white blots around, and so it is important for black to hit here. Even though white has the much stronger board, black doesn't have any developed home board, but it is possible that white might roll poorly from the bar, and black might be able to pick up one of these checkers as well and start fighting back, right? Now, the alternative of just playing safely doesn't, basically just gives white a free hand, right? So like sliding the 5 point, then white is just going to make one of these points probably, and then black is going to be blocked, and it's just not a good situation, yeah? So might as well fight. White comes in and hits loose. Again, lots of blots around, but thankfully black's home board is not a threat. So even if white gets hit, then he can recover. But black dances. White makes the 5 prime and comes out, and black dances again. Another interesting moment, and this is worthwhile to think about, right? Most of the time we're like, make the 6 prime, make the 6 prime, right? But in this particular situation, it's not so vital, right? One of the ideas with making a 6 prime against a defensive anchor is that, especially when your opponent has a number of checkers, like this behind the prime, yeah, is that your opponent's home board is likely to crunch in some situations, right? And then the threat of being hit as you bring checkers in becomes less, right? But here black has plenty of time, right? Even with 5 checkers behind a 6 prime, by the, basically the timing is such that black, unless black rolls double 6s, double 5s a couple of times, he's not going to crunch in his home board. So it's not so vital here to make that 6 prime. And one of the problems, of course, with making the 6 prime is that you're going to have to clear this point, and it's 6 points away from the anchor, and that can cause some problems, okay? And so at this point, it makes much more sense for white to just bring in the checker from the 9 and move his other checkers around, and don't focus on priming black's checkers, because black has plenty of constructive things to do with his rolls in terms of building his home board, right? So again, usually making the 6 prime is a good idea, but not in every case, okay? And in this case, black has, is not so desperate to get those back checkers out to prevent his home board from crunching, Okay, black dances again. Lots of dancing in this game for black. And white comes around with the 6-4. Dance by black, and white is quite happy to be able to clear that 9 point, and by putting spares on the 6 and 5. Black finally enters. He probably would have preferred to enter with a 1, but in any case, notice that I've seen this before, the idea that just starting your home board, slotting any point, just about any point, can be a good strategy here as well. It is wastage, but you can see the gammon chances are getting up towards 70%. So it does make sense to maybe start building a home board in preparation for a shot. It doesn't look likely, but you know, the 3-point anchor can generate some shots, especially if white is not able to clear the 6-point easily. But this move is fine, of course. Okay, goes to the 1-point. Black jumps out, and again, this is interesting. So it's close, but it is possible, right, that black can just start setting up the home board. White is going to be clearing his outside points, and so it's not going to be so difficult for black to start recirculating those back checkers. But just in case, it might be a good idea here to start building a mini prime, you know, slotting those points. It's close, and you know, it's not, it's only about a 2/3 chance of being gammoned here for black. So it's not entirely hopeless, sorry, but yeah, interesting that XG says, you know, maybe you should consider start building some structure on your side of the board in case there's a shot. Okay, but black jumps out, which is also not bad, right? Okay, white clears the 8-point. And again, XG kind of prefers here to, you know, build some structure, right? Start, you know, if black gets a shot, then he wants to be able to contain the white checker. So making the bar point is thematic for that. But there's not a big difference here. And it does seem like white's winning chances are so high, right, that some kind of miracle will need to happen here. Okay, white clears the 7-point and is ready to bear off, right? And we're already getting into mistake territory here for black. It does seem to make sense to jump out here, and it's not really a big mistake. But again, you know, look what XG says. You know, need to slot here. It says at least slot the 4-point. Okay. And it's kind of this idea of like a two-way strategy. Yes, you've got to get the back checkers out, but also, you know, take some measures to strengthen your home board in case white has difficulty clearing those points in front of the anchor. Okay, 1 checker off for white. And yeah, at least here you're making the 4-point, right? Though again, just slotting is also possible. Okay, white clears the 6-point, which is very important when you're facing a 3-point anchor, because of how threes play, right? A lot of moves here are fine. You know, we're looking at that kind of move or this kind of move. Okay, but not a big difference here. Couple checkers off. And yeah, XG kind of likes that, or there's lots of very close moves here. Okay, 1 checker off here. This is possible as well, but when I looked at this, I didn't like how 2s played necessarily, right? So I like to have that spare checker on the 4 as well. This does seem to give some flexibility, right? And yeah. Okay, double fours for black. And this is an interesting point here. This is a fairly big mistake. And it's interesting. Black strengthens his homeboard, right? But the problem is black kind of dismantles his prime, right? This 5 prime. And so if black does get a shot, it's possible, it would be possible for white to enter and then possibly escape, because of the now open bar point, black's bar point. And so it's a fairly hefty mistake. And XG says, this is a perfectly fine time to run with the back checker and efficiently use the dice to, basically do some crossovers and put a checker right on the 6. To save a gammon, you should be aiming to put as many checkers as you can on your 6 point. And so, yeah, I think it's a combination of that efficiency and also, maintaining the 5 prime, not wasting checkers by, yes, you get a stronger homeboard, but you do leave a gap in your prime. And this is not a very useful move for white. And now black might have kind of wished to use his double fours differently, because, this basically brings the gammon chances, would have brought the gammon chances down a bit, right? And that black could have maybe made a run for it and saved the gammon in that case. Even like double 1s or double 2s would have been useful in that case, right? But black rolls a 3-1, not very useful for saving the gammon, that is. White's finally able to clear the last point. So the win is guaranteed, and now it's just a question if black can save the gammon, but as you can see, it's already over 90%. Black jumps out and basically 4 rolls to save the gammon, right, for black. Still possible with a large double, but black doesn't get it, yeah. And white gets the gammon, and he's now 4-0, right? So 3 away, 7 away. Okay. Right. So maybe kind of a straightforward game, this one. Not a lot of back and forth, but there were a couple interesting ideas here. This idea of being aware of kind of the theme of the game, the strategy, and following a consistent strategy, unless there's a major turnaround or something like that. And then this idea of maintaining some spare checkers for flexibility, right, in front of the anchor, as opposed to even like making a stronger homeboard by making points behind the anchor. Of course, it depends on the situation, but flexibility is a principle that you generally want to keep in mind when you're playing strong backgammon. Okay, so like I said, this initial game, not a lot of turnarounds and drama, but believe me, you're going to see some quite exciting games coming up. This is just the setup. Okay, so hope to see you for match 2, game 2. Thanks very much, and feel free to leave some comments and suggestions, and we can discuss them. Thanks.